Alright, let's jump right into it. It is the year 1347, and at age 13, you have decided to leave your family and devote your life to God. Your parents are worried about you, but they know this is what you want, and ultimately they want what's best for you. So they bless you and send you on your way to begin your new life in a local monastery. As you enter the grand doors, you are met with the sight of rows upon rows of desks where other boys your age sit diligently writing. You take your place among them, and after getting settled, it is time for your first class. Excited to learn about God, you listen intently to the monk who is explaining the importance of prayer and penance. But as the weeks go on, you notice something very wrong. There seems to be a lot of kissing going on around here. And as you get older and begin taking part in confession, you hear a lot of things that make you uncomfortable. Some of the priests seem very interested in knowing every detail of your life, sometimes asking questions that make you feel ashamed and even dirty. What you don't realize is that this is no ordinary In fact, there is a lot that goes on behind these four walls that you may not want to see. So open your eyes, because we are going to show them to you. Welcome to our channel, where we bring you the craziest and weirdest facts from human history. Some of the things you will learn here, you will never forget. Now, before we get started, we would like to ask you for a small favor. If you think you can handle the truth, press the like button to support our work. And without further ado, let's begin. Starting at the top, the head of the monastery, known as the abbot, has ultimate authority over the lives of everyone within the walls of the monastery. But he is not some saintly man devoted to God. In fact, he is more interested in acquiring wealth and power than living a simple life dedicated to prayer and worship. To that end, he takes advantage of his position to target young boys, both through direct abuse and by turning a blind eye to the activities of his fellow monks. Many of these men are not pious scholars or devout hermits, but career clergy, more concerned with advancing their careers than serving the Lord. This means they are willing to do whatever it takes to climb the ranks of the church, even if that means covering up the sins of others. The first thing you will encounter at the monastery is confession. And while this should be a sacred time for seeking forgiveness and finding peace, it quickly becomes clear that this is not the case here. Instead of providing solace and comfort, the confession booth becomes a place of shame and humiliation, where the priest uses his position of power to berate and belittle those who come to him for help. He questions everything you say, and even accuses you of hiding the most intimate details of your life. He tells you that you must confess every thought that passes through your head, no matter how private or personal. While this is obviously ridiculous and inappropriate, the young novice has been raised to respect and obey the clergy. Therefore, he complies and confesses all of his thoughts and feelings to the priest. In doing so, he unknowingly gives the priest power over him that will only grow as time goes on. Because in this environment, confession is not about seeking forgiveness, but about control and manipulation. The priest has now gained knowledge about the novice that he can use to blackmail him or harm him in any way he sees fit. Another practice that takes a sinister turn is the so-called spiritual marriage. This is a ceremony where the novice is symbolically married to a senior monk or abbot, who then becomes his spiritual guide and mentor. However, this relationship quickly becomes one of an abusive master and a submissive servant, where the young novice is forced to do the bidding of his abuser without question. One of the most disturbing aspects of this spiritual marriage is that the novice is often groomed from a young age, with the same senior monks who abuse younger boys taking them under their wing and indoctrinating them into the ways of the monastery. This means that the cycle of abuse continues as each new generation of novices is subjected to the same predators who have already corrupted their predecessors. Flagellation is another practice that is supposed to be a form of penance and self-discipline, but in this monastery, it quickly becomes a tool of torture and sexual gratification. The novices are forced to whip themselves as a form of punishment, but the monks take sadistic pleasure in watching them suffer. They encourage the novices to inflict greater and greater pain on themselves, until it becomes a spectacle of blood and pain. Even worse, some monks take it upon themselves to punish the novices physically, beating them and inflicting wounds that go beyond any reasonable form of discipline. Another dangerous activity takes place during the night office prayers. This is a mandatory prayer that all monks must attend, and it is during this time that the abuse reaches its most sinister level. The entire monastery falls silent as the monks gather together in the dark to pray. It is during this time that the senior monks take advantage of the darkness and the solemnity of the occasion to carry out their abuse. Groups of boys are taken away from the main chamber and brought to secluded rooms where they are assaulted and abused. Other times, the abuse happens in plain sight as the monks take turns abusing a single novice. Because the prayer can go on for hours, there are plenty of opportunities for the abuse to occur, and the boys are too afraid to speak up or try to stop it. While the night office prayers are a prime time for abuse, it is important to note that it happens all the time. A common occurrence is for a senior monk to request a holy kiss from a novice. While this might sound innocent, it quickly becomes clear that it is anything but. The kiss is really a form of grooming where the senior monk takes advantage of the novice's innocence and naivety to gain his trust. Once the kiss has been established as a normal and acceptable practice, the senior monk slowly begins to cross boundaries. He may start by touching the novice inappropriately during the kiss, and then he may move on to more aggressive forms of abuse. The holy kiss is a way for the senior monks to test the waters and see how far they can push the boundaries without arousing suspicion. Another seemingly innocent tradition that hides a dark secret is the cell visitations. This is when the senior monks visit the novices in their cells to inspect their living conditions and ensure that they are following the rules. However, these visits quickly become a sham as the senior monks use them as a cover to spy on the novices and find opportunities to abuse them. They may check up on the novice when they know that he is alone in his cell, or they may linger in the room longer than necessary, finding excuses to touch the novice inappropriately or even force him into sexual acts. During these cell visitations, the senior monks have complete control over the situation. They are able to manipulate the novice through threats and intimidation, knowing that he is completely dependent on them for his well-being and safety within the monastery. So let's think about this for a second. You've entered the monastery seeking a life of prayer and worship, but instead you find yourself trapped in a nightmare of abuse and despair. Every practice that was supposed to bring you closer to God has been twisted into a tool of torture and humiliation. You have been violated, beaten and tormented both physically and emotionally, and you don't know how to escape. And the worst part is that everyone around you knows what's happening and no one does anything to stop it. This is the reality of many young boys who entered the monastery seeking refuge only to find monsters instead of saints. And unfortunately, this is not just a story from the distant past. It's a reminder that abuse of power and institutional corruption are still prevalent in our society today. From the Catholic Church to the recent abuse scandal involving Larry Nassar, USA gymnastics team doctor, editors have found ways to exploit their positions of authority and silence their victims. It's important to remember that these stories are not just relics of the past, but they are a warning for the future. We must remain vigilant and hold those in power accountable to protect the vulnerable and ensure that history does not repeat itself. By understanding the dark side of human nature and the ways in which power can corrupt even the most seemingly pious institutions, we can work towards creating a better future for ourselves and for generations to come. Thank you for watching.